Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Imperial Galactic Survival with your currently Addled Kiva. Now, I am going to be working on the Brace of Darkness project again today, and I say again because this is my third time recording. So, anyways, so there are going to be a couple of things that I'm going to touch on today. First of all, I'm going to be touching on the use of decoys at the edge of ships and telling you a little story about why decoys around the perimeter of the ship are advantageous for any build and why you should suffer the CPU loss when doing these. Okay. I'm also going to be sharing my thoughts on how I'm building the ship for combat and why I'm building it how I'm building it. Now, I normally don't touch on these topics specifically, but this is going to be a special episode, and excuse me. Now, a couple of heads up here. I am still sick, so if you hear me coughing or sounding nasally, I apologize. I will try and filter as much of that out by muting myself when I feel that coming on, but it's not guaranteed to be foolproof. And as you know, I do these and I do these recordings and I don't do editing because it's just my style of YouTube and how I do YouTube. And I prefer this style because it fits me. Anyways, if you're new here, I apologize for all the tangents. Let's go ahead and get started with the first thing on the list. And that is decoys and how you can use them to avoid incoming fire as much as possible. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm not happy with it. The edge is just too big. Now, I am going to go ahead and leave it as is because I need this space for the thrusters and it fits the style, but we will be adding another layer above it at some point, and I will be showing you how to do that in a second. Now, I'm going to go... Now, before I forget again, turn on symmetry plane when you're doing this, okay? It just saves a lot of time. Now, as you can see here, I have the typical GEI color palette that I have been working on for a while now, and you have your 4 shades of black here. Now, these 4 colors, this one is your hull color. This one is always going to be your hull color. And the reason that I use that for the hull color is because when I'm building, I can quickly switch it between black and white. So black is the final color, but white is the build color that I use when I'm building for the sake of my eyes and your eyes, and because YouTube decides to darken every video to an extent. So I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing that for you. Anyways, these other 3 colors here are unassigned, and they are for you as the player and the user of these ships to use as you wish. Now, I only left you 3 colors here. Now, you can reassign most of these blues, but, yeah. You can also reassign all of these, but, well, not the pinks. I use the pinks for, the warp core. The 2 pink shades here are used for the warp core. This one can probably be reassigned depending on the build, if I use the orange or not, but anyways, you can figure that out. Let's see here. Oh, right, decoys. So, while I'm thinking about it, the decoys in this game are, or the decoys that I use for this, are often... Come on, grab the texture, please. Really? You're not grabbing texture. Great job. Okay. Okay, there we go. So, the decoys here are... God damn it. Okay, my OCD just hit me there. Anyways, the decoys here are typically a thruster and a generator put together. And there's also usually a turret out here somewhere, which I still gotta implement. I guess I could do that in a bit. But anyways, I use these on the edges, and I also use these on the internals up here. So there is a large portion of the ship that is just pure decoy. Now, there are some container extensions surrounding the decoy thrusters, but these are going to be aux label container controllers. So they're going to have, whenever I do a build, let's go ahead and show this off. No, I'm not going to sign in. Workshop. Where's the workshop? Guides. You know what? Screw that. Whatever. So whenever I... Wow, that was bad. That was ill-conceived. Anyways, moving on. Whenever I do a ship, there are... And I label these. Why don't I just show you? Let's see here. Recent builds. Something recent that I published. Wow, I suck at this YouTube job, don't I? It's fine. Oh yeah, here it is. So the Reaper here is a project that I just finished. This is up on the workshop. Just search GEI Reaper or just search Reaper. And this one has a lot of the same build characteristics. Where it comes down to it, you have storage here, and you have this aux label here, salvage and ore. Now, the reason that these AUX labels are here is because it means auxiliary. And you should always load those last. So whenever you do salvage and mining, make sure to move these to proper cargo holds. Because there's plenty of cargo holds in this. I mean, come on. These are great cargo holds. Huge cargo holds. And these aux ones are just extra when you're trying to like move a base or something. Like you're trying to move your entire faction or something. That's what those are for. But yeah, this is the Reaper. It's on the workshop. I'm not going to touch on it any more than that. So, I need to type this. Just destroy. And get rid of that. Clean that off the field. Now, that's the plan for the container controllers here. Is they're going to be aux label because they're in places that will take damage first. And heavy combat could take damage, so you don't want to fill those. Those are just like extra storage holds once you're filled up on loot or something. Okay, I use storage containers just to fill out space. So, okay, we've touched on that, and we've touched on the decoys and the reason of the decoys. But I haven't touched on the story of why and how I learned about these decoys, have I? Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. But before I do that, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's see here, and while I'm thinking about it, because sometimes I just got to do stuff while I'm thinking about it. Okay, so another thing I want to show you before I tell you the decoy story, because it's building related, and I'd rather go to that first, is how to use these Xeno textures. Now, a lot of people complain that they hate using these Xeno textures, and there are a few things that you need to consider before using Xenosteel. Number one, am I better off using Xeno here, or am I okay with, like, Xeno is great for armor, so that's always a plus, but the textures aren't that great. So, certain build styles make good use of Xeno. Like mine, I build my build style around using Xeno. And one thing that you should think about before you use Xeno is, does it help the build, or can I get away with using hardened steel here? Or can I get away with, in the internals, using like carbon steel or hardened steel or combat steel to get the texture that I want? Because combat steel is heavier than Xeno, but Xeno has a really cruddy texture. So you have to make these decisions on your build and choose where to use Xeno and choose where not to use Xeno. And for me, I like using Xeno because it fits the build style. But at the same time, it can be a pain in the butt to use in texture because it's got so many limited texture options. And every time I ask the developers about, are you going to add more texture options for this? And they're like, no. Okay, it's like everything, it's no. So there's not going to be expanded on textures ever, as far as from what I'm getting back. Something to do on the technical end of texture library being full, and they'd have to recode the game to add more. Anyways, yeah. So when you use Xeno textures, make sure to use them on the full block area. In other words, don't try and use such as like half blocks like this for Xeno, because it just runs into problems and it gives you a headache. So when you use Xeno, make sure that you've got clean lines to use it in, or if you don't have clean lines, you have the ability to put something over it to minimize it, such as this, to minimize its impact. Now, I need to copy that properly to minimize the impact. So one thing you could do is just this. Just, there you go. And I don't think I'll leave this here, but I want to show it off. And like that, and then you've minimized the texture there, so then you can apply the Xeno texture, which is on that block currently. Oh, good gracious. Undo, because that's, of course, that's what happens. So, there you go. You can do something like that to minimize the amount of Xeno that you have, or the amount of the Xeno texture that is visible. Okay, that's something you can do. Anyways, Xeno is a pain in the butt to use, and when you're using elevators, I'm going to go ahead and spawn in the Reaper again because it has another glorious example of why Xeno irks so many people and annoys so many people. Is, let's go to the main bridge here. This, it's just like I didn't have. I had to use Xeno here because it fit the style, but then you had this problem up here where it's just, you have to use that texture. It's not great, and because you had the Xeno texture below, you're stuck with the Xeno, only using Xeno textures up here. Now, this is something else that I do, that I learned was, gosh, that should have been turned around. Really, stay open. So you can use boarding ramps to create quick entry areas. Now on this one, because it was so many levels above the bridge, and I wanted to keep that, and I didn't want to create like a trough there that went down into it. I apologize for that. Yeah, I warned you about that. Anyways, I wanted to create a sort of like do everything med station here, so that I had the ability to have like medical here, decontamination from radiation, and oxygen right there as you get into the bridge, so that you don't have a rat run to get to the main bridge. And I know I was talking about Xeno, but the problem was you had these Xeno textures here, and I had to get really creative with the textures here to deal with just the Xeno. So think about that when you're building, and ask yourself if it's okay to replace certain Xeno blocks with carbon steel, or combat steel or something, as shaping blocks and texturing blocks, and if that is going to help you, or if it's not going to work at all. In that specific case, I ended up deciding that it wouldn't work to replace those Xeno blocks, because that bridge it just wouldn't work for the bridge. Now, that bridge, I'm still not happy with it because of the Xeno textures, but we'll get back to that later, okay? I might redo that, and I doubt that I will, but I might, okay? And just remember that, okay, when you're using Xeno textures, because they are a pain to use, and this is coming from somebody that uses them all the time. Okay, so we are going to, excuse me, dang it. Okay, again, sorry about that. I don't normally do this, and it's just something with being sick. It is what it is. Anyways, so also, about this build, having a lot of fun with it, and let's go ahead and start shaping the back end so that we have the engineering section. Now, what I could do is do something like I did on other builds, which is I just literally, wow, that sounded awful. That was an awful way of phrasing that. This is the vanilla version. No, that's wrong. That I'm looking for the vanilla version. There it is. Okay, I have a demonstrator version because this was made for Reforged, and I have a vanilla version so that I can use it for like thumbnails and stuff. And I removed all the solar panels and all the internals, and then you can put a hanger in there if you really want to. Like this is enough room in here that you can turn it into a carrier. You can put the hanger block from the base game, but I don't know why you want to do that, because that block is not great. I hate to say this, but the drones in this game that the developers had a couple of episodes ago, they aren't great. They really aren't. They need to make a player version that has more hit points, better tracking and AI, and quite frankly can keep up with enemies and your own ship and be proper escorts. But they gotta improve that. Anyways, they have the feedback. They just have to do what they can with it. Anyways, so the reason I brought this in is because I wanted to show you how I did the back end here. And you got a lot of thrusters here, which is not great. But the problem is that I've got to then copy and paste that piece. So let's go ahead and do that. So instead of using the Control-Shift-A selection, I'm going to do a specific selection. Now, if I was smart, if I was a smart person, I would have, because I've done this before for a different ship. Oh, I am a smart person. Okay, never mind. Well, I mean, I'm smarter than I... Let's just stop that train of thought before I make a fool of myself, or more of a fool of myself. So we're gonna spawn in the Reaper again, because can't mess with perfection. And we're gonna spawn in. Let's spawn in the version 10. There we go. So on the Reaper here, a lot of the internals is still empty, which is what I want. I don't want a completed ship that has the internals still there. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we're gonna set it someplace like that. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to adjust it from there. Of course. So you want to cut once. It's like carpentry. You want to cut once, or you want to measure twice and then cut once. Any carpenters out there will understand what I'm trying to say there. But anyways. Okay. Copy it. Now I'm not going to cut it because I might have to do this again. And then we're going to hit selection, and we're going to paste it. Now, I do see some container controllers there that I'm going to have to fix, and I also see a lot of internals I'm going to have to get rid of. So sometimes when you copy from another build, it doesn't really help you much, but I'm just going to paste it in here for the moment, and we can clean it up in a sec. But I want to get it lined up so that it is completely lined up, and as you can see here, we might not have enough room to do this, and I might have to adjust the main build as well. Yeah, it looks like I'll have to adjust the main build as well. Okay. Well, we can do that in a second. So I want to get this line right here. lined up with the middle over here. I think that's lined up, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it. And then, because I have a good starter block on this build, I can simply Control-Shift-A, and it selects the entire thing. Now, we're going to move this up a few blocks. So we're going to cut it. Before I do this, let's go ahead and save a copy, just in case something goes wrong with the copy and paste. Okay, there you go. And that way, if I mess something up, I can always revert. Control-Shift-A, and make sure that it's selected the right part. Yes, it has. Okay, perfect. Then we can cut it, and paste it, and move it up 1, 2, 3. Now, the starter block doesn't go far enough back, which is fine. So that'll fix itself. Maybe not. So then we've got to fix it by adding a cockpit. Okay. Okay, so let's put that there, and we'll simply sit in this. Well, it's got enough thrusters that it should be fine. Come on. There we go. Now, that's not great, but whatever. Now, at this point, I just want to get the shaping of this piece in, and I want to know what it's going to do. And I might not keep it, I might trim it down, who knows. But for the moment, let's bring it up. Okay, so I need to bring it up one more. I'm just eyeballing this, by the way, so if I make a mistake, so be it. Now, I want to get it linked up so I know how much I need to cut. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, well, that's just great. So we're going to leave this out over there for the time being. And let's go ahead and get the shaping over here done, because I know what I'm working towards now. And, well, I'm going to have to clean this up off screen, because this just doesn't really fit. I might actually just get the piece from the Aurora, the actual Aurora, the original piece, and then clean it up and add it to a build kit, because I already have a CV build kit. And I probably should check that to see if the Aurora piece is on there, but it doesn't look like it. Because I use that piece all the time, so I might as well add it. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll do that off screen because nobody wants to see me working on a build kit. I mean, especially when I'm just copy and pasting pieces around. Okay, so now you have an idea of what I'm going to do. And, oh, I like that. I forgot how much time I spent on this, just a little shaping there. Anyways, gushing over my own builds a little bit here, but that's alright. You see, this is what happens. It's just like I just destroyed what I was working on, thinking that I was, yeah, anyways, whatever. This is why you save copies. And attempt to spell correctly, of course. Okay. There we go. Oh, okay. Control-Shift-A. Let's just get rid of that for now. And we're back to where we were. So that was an exercise in figure out something. No, that was an exercise in let's try something. That something sucks. Okay, let's revert it. Anyways, stuff like that happens when you build. You just gotta try. You just gotta try stuff out and see if it works. Okay, Now, I am currently looking at thruster placements and seeing if I can actually do a decent thruster. So, let's see if we can... Let's add the full thing here. And I don't have... yeah, that makes sense. So that model's not going to work. So let's go ahead and add symmetry plane again, because I removed it, and from the well, I removed the build that we had it on, turned on for. Okay. Now, there is something that really worries me right now, and I'll explain why I'm worried about this build by just looking at this build. So, one thing that I'm worried about this build is that, or that build over there, is because on the internals on this one, it's a smaller ship, so you don't need as many generators. And it's already pretty darn compact, like on forward and reverse thrust. By the way, this build is available on the GEI Discord for anybody that joins the GEI Discord as an incentive to join the Discord. There will be a link to the Discord below, and I have said Discord 5 times now, including the most recent time. Yeah, anyways. This is why I need to go to marketing school. I suck at communications. Anyways. Internals on here are very, very compact. And that is not going to work for a larger ship that is going to need generators. Like full-fledged larger generators, such as these. The T2 generators, it's going to need those. And you're also going to need things such as other thrusters in all directions, and yeah. So, full disclosure, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about doing that. Okay, I apologize. Did that again without thinking, and yeah, I hate being sick. I really do. Now, if I am going to do the... Gosh, communications again. If I am going to do the Aurora sort of wedge that goes back and forth, and I have these on the side instead, it might be able to be thinner. But there is the problem of where the heck is the bridge going to be? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't made the bridge yet. So, anyways, these are some things that we will have to think about for next episode. Now, there is going to be a channel review at the end, or notes on channel content, upcoming content, and scheduling. So, this is going to be the end of the build content. And I've been working on this for 3 hours. Okay. Anyways, thank you for watching. For those of you that are going to click off early instead of listening to me talk about stories and things like that, go ahead and click off now. Thank you for watching. I'm not going to keep you here. Okay. Anyways, but if you want to learn about something, a nice little story that I have from back in the day, stick around. So, back in the day, I had a ship, and it was a very old version, a very old ship, and it was this ship, actually. It's still in the blueprint factory. And I was out mining, and minding my own business. And out there, and I decided to add some more turrets because I had turret limits off, and I get outside and I start adding more turrets, and I heard the plink, plink, plink explosions of the ship taking damage. Great job falling there. And so I get outside the ship, and the whole thing starts taking damage, and I'm like, okay, it's probably just a drone. I hit the detector recently. It's a drone. It's fine. So I'm outside the ship working on the rear end and working in the hangar, and I keep hearing explosions. I'm just like, surely the turrets would have dealt with a drone by now. I better go outside and look at it. And lo and behold, there's a giant frickin' Tovera out there. And I'm just like, come on, man. So I go outside and I'm panicking, so I'm trying to get out and back to the ship. And just imagine a freaking Tovera over here. This is something that I did to the freaking Tovera afterwards. It's fine. This is what the Tovera looked like afterwards when I came back and destroyed it. And so I get in the cockpit, and I get in the side here, and I go up. And I go up and I get in the cockpit, and I start running away, and the cockpit's damaged. And all I see is this Tovera, and so I'm just like, okay, well, keep the nose pointed to it, and then warp away. And I get away, and I warp out. I manage to warp out. Or I get to a planet, I don't remember which. And I look at the front of the ship. And a big chunk of the nose has been taken out. And I didn't save a copy of the BP, of course. And I look at the nose. And I'm just like, why is only the nose damaged? Why didn't it go after my generators in the main engineering section? Because the generators are right here. Like, the generators are right here in this corridor. What happened? How am I alive? Yeah, this is an older build. And I'm just like, what happened? And so I get the mistake, so I see that the arty has been taken out. And I'd had a few instances where the artillery turret on the front of the nose was the first thing to be taken out. So I get this mistaken notion that artillery turrets are like catnip to the Toveras, to the NPC ships that blow up your ship, that chase you. And I have this notion I have this misconception for 3 full months before I finally talk with other people. And they're just like, no, it targets all turrets equally. Why would why would the developers code NPC ships to target artillery turrets over any other turrets? I mean, guys, we know Elion enough to know that's a little bit too much coding to ask. I mean, no offense to the developers, it's just how it works. So I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. So the point of this story is twofold. One, you want to learn from your mistakes, and you want to constantly challenge your conceptions? Your preconceptions. You want to constantly challenge your preconceptions. Because when there is new information, it is wonderful, both as an employee or as an independent creator or as just a human in general, to be open to new information and think on it critically. Now, this is something I talk about all the time, so I won't go on it too easily, but I am going to hit on this point a little bit more. And one thing I have learned from my life experience, and I'm going into self-improvement mode here, but good things to be as an employee: a go-getter, somebody that sees a problem and doesn't just say, oh, that's somebody else's problem. No, if you can and it's within your ability and within your job description, fix it yourself. Do your best to improve the situation, okay? I sound like a freaking motivational speaker here, but that's fine. It's fine. So, on top of that, you also want to, again, if it's within your ability and within your practical, within your job description, and it's alright, if you don't know, just go to your boss and be like, hey, I saw this, it looks wrong, do you mind if I just fix it myself? And your boss will either say yay or nay, or will either, if they're a good boss, they'll say, yeah, you can fix it, but this is the form you need to fill out, this is the maintenance request, here's how you fill it out, and you can fix it yourself. And then we just have it documented that it's been fixed. A good boss will do that. But it's good to be a go-getter, it's good to ask questions, and constantly learn. Have a desire to learn means that you're going to be a good employee. And, well, interpersonal skills are always part of that equation, but I don't know how to teach interpersonal skills. I struggle with them myself, okay? But yeah, that was the first point. The second point is, because this happened to me, and I survived it, and I was just like, oh man, I fucked up. How can I learn from this? Because I did that, I learned that putting decoys, such as like thruster decoys and generator decoys, on the internals, as well as spacing out these things so they don't chain react, is going to improve survivability. And yeah, this is the really, really old design where you had to go into the nose that's probably been blown off to have medical treatment. In the later versions, it was moved up here, but got a little sidetracked there. But I also learned that on the edges of the wings, so let's take a look at a later version, okay? A later iteration of the same ship. So this is, again, an older version, but here are some changes. So you have your iterative changes. So on the internals, you have your constructors here, which, oh crud, I need to fix this BP. Because those thrusters are turned around. Those constructors are turned around with the new models. So you have your, first of all, I changed it to white on the interior so that you have the ability to see even when the ship isn't powered. Then you have your medical stuff up here. Yep, there. And the medical stuff is up here. This is a later iteration. And then the engineering has been sealed off. Now, this one is still an old version that is pre-lag, that still required lag shot. So, again, a very old version. And then you've got decoys on the outside, which is just thrusters and some generators here, but that's fine. But yeah, the wing things are sort of splayed out. And then then there's that version. So you learn iteratively. So you start with a brick, and you successively improve. So this is the third iteration, and these are all available to tier 1 patrons, if I remember correctly. So each one of these BPs you can look at yourself if you would like to become a patron, and all my existing patrons have access to it. Have access to these BPs if you want to look at them yourself. Now, as you can see here, I still have some lag shot because, well, I hadn't moved it at this point, but I have changed some things around a little bit. And as you can see, I spread these thrusters out so that they were in clusters so they didn't chain react each other. And I added the wings, and if I remember correctly, there are decoy generators on the edge. Oh, I didn't add those until later. Okay. Yeah, I didn't add the decoy generators until later. Okay. But yeah, anyways. After that first Tovera attacked me, I started making improvements. And after every succeeding, every iteration has improvements as a result. And this is the final one where I removed the hangar bay. And this is the one I'm really proud of. And just keep improving on build. This is, I guess this is the build that is just like the one that I will not stop working on. So I improved the thrust mechanics and everything on it. But the point is, you learn. And with everything you learn, there are even open spaces dedicated for artillery thrusters, so it's easier to bring in at a lower level requirement. and the ease of bringing it in, all the lag shot is removed. It's just continue to improve, because that is going to, that's the mark of a good builder, is just continuing to improve and not getting stuck in a rut. Now, I get stuck in ruts all the time, and I just work past them. It is what it is. So anyways, thank you for listening to that story and my tangent afterwards, if you're still here. If you're still here and watching, let me know with the timestamp of 40:30 in the comments. Let me know that you're still here and watching this. Anyways, thank you. Remember to have a good day. Remember to try and be your best self. I know people get aggravated, and you think you tell somebody something, and then you get angry at them because you thought you told them something, and I made that mistake today. It sucked, and I will try and work on it. But just remember that you're human, and that there is always room for improvement, and try and be kind to your fellow humans. Oh, right, one last thing. Buy me a coffee, due to their, buy me a coffee links are no longer a thing. They screwed me over a bit, so I decided not to use their service anymore. I had a really bad experience with them, and I'll tell that story some other time. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys next time. I am sorry that the video is late today. Windows update. Had to re-record several times. I did not make the time, so it'll be out a couple hours late, and I apologize, but it is what it is. I'd rather not skip another recording, even if it means I'm releasing the video late. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Banshee out.